My aunt insulted my weight at Thanksgiving, so I revealed what her husband told me. The room went silent. 23 people stopped mid-chew, forks frozen halfway to mouths. My aunt's face drained of color. Uncle Rich looked like he might vomit into the mashed potatoes. It started when I walked in carrying my green bean casserole. I'd spent 2 hours on it, trying to make something that would satisfy my family's impossible standards. My aunt took one look at me and announced loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Well, someone's been enjoying too many casseroles, haven't they?" Laughter rippled through the room. My cousins smirked. My grandmother shook her head disapprovingly. I felt my face burn as I set the dish on the table and took my seat at the far end, the place reserved for family disappointments. For 3 hours, I endured it. Comments about my plate size, suggestions that I skip dessert. My aunt's running commentary about how I used to be such a pretty girl before I let myself go. Uncle Rich said nothing, just stared at his turkey like it held the secrets of the universe. That's when I remembered our conversation from last July. I'd been house-sitting for them while they vacationed in Maine. Uncle Rich came home early, said he'd had a fight with my aunt and needed space. We sat on their back porch drinking beers, and he started talking, really talking. He told me things I wish I could unhear. About the affair that started 6 years ago. About how my aunt knew but pretended not to because divorce would ruin her reputation. About the second family he had in Connecticut. 2 kids. A whole other life. Your aunt's sister, he said, drunk and miserable. Can you believe that? I'm sleeping with both of them. Have been for years. I'd promised to keep his secret. Told myself it wasn't my business. But watching my aunt tear me apart in front of our entire family while Uncle Rich sat there like a coward, something inside me snapped. That's interesting advice coming from you, I said calmly, cutting through her latest jab about gym memberships. She paused, wine glass halfway to her lips. Excuse me? About letting myself go, I continued. When your husband seems to prefer your sister exactly as she is. The silence was deafening. My grandmother's fork clattered against her plate. My mother gasped. Uncle Rich stood up so fast his chair tipped backward and crashed to the floor. My aunt's face went from white to red to purple. What did you just say? Should I elaborate? I asked, meeting her eyes. Should I mention the twins? Or the house in Hartford? Or maybe just the fact that you've known for 3 years and stayed anyway because you're more afraid of what the country club would say than you are of being humiliated? Uncle Rich grabbed his coat. My aunt started screaming. My mother demanded I leave immediately. As I stood up, my aunt's sister, yes, that aunt, burst into tears and ran from the room. The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls. My phone buzzed continuously with texts. Most were from family members calling me cruel, ungrateful, a liar. 3 were from my aunt's lawyer threatening a defamation suit. 1 was from my cousin Becca. Is it true about the twins? I didn't respond to any of them. I made coffee and waited, because I knew something they didn't. Uncle Rich had given me more than just his confession that night. He'd given me documentation, bank statements, birth certificates, photos, and he'd asked me to hold on to them, just in case, he'd said. That afternoon, Uncle Rich showed up at my apartment. He looked like he hadn't slept. We need to talk, he said. About what you know. About what I need you to do next. I let him in because, honestly, I wanted answers. Why me? Why had he confessed everything to me of all people? I was just the niece who got invited to family events out of obligation, the one they talked about in hushed tones. Poor thing, can't seem to get her life together. Uncle Rich sat on my couch, head in his hands. I need those documents back. No. He looked up, surprised. What do you mean? No? I mean exactly what I said. No. You gave them to me for safekeeping. You said, and I quote, "If anything ever happens, make sure people know the truth." That was different, he said. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were sober enough to photocopy birth certificates, I pointed out. Sober enough to print out 6 years of bank statements showing wire transfers to a house in Connecticut. Sober enough to give me a USB drive with photos of your other children at their birthday parties. His face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Your aunt's going to destroy me, he whispered. She's already called her lawyer. She's going to take everything. Good. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. What? I said good. You deserve it. You cheated on her with her own sister for 6 years. You have 2 children you've been hiding. You've been living a double life and you thought you could just keep going? You don't understand, he said. It's complicated. It really isn't. You're a coward who wanted 2 families and thought you could have them both. Uncle Rich stood up, anger replacing the desperation in his eyes. Give me those documents. No, I'm not asking anymore. Those are my private papers. You have no right to keep them. I pulled out my phone and opened my recording app. Hit play. His voice filled my small living room, drunk and confessional from that night in July. Every detail about the affair, the second family, my aunt's knowledge and complicity in the charade. I recorded everything, I said quietly. That night, I recorded the whole conversation, because even drunk, I knew you were telling me something important, something that might matter someday. He went very still. You recorded me without my consent? Yep. That's illegal in this state. Actually, it's not. This is a one-party consent state. I can record any conversation I'm part of without telling the other person. I looked it up. The color drained from his face again. He sat back down, heavily, like his strings had been cut. What do you want? He asked finally. Money? Is that what this is? I laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all. You think I'm blackmailing you? Aren't you? No, I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you. Then why are you doing this? I thought about it for a moment. About all those Thanksgiving dinners where I'd been the punchline, all those Christmas gatherings where my aunt had made comments about my weight, my job, my apartment, my life choices, all those times Uncle Rich had sat silently, letting it happen. Because I'm tired of being the family joke, I said. I'm tired of being treated like I'm less than everyone else just because I don't fit their perfect mold. And I'm tired of watching people like you get away with everything while people like me get torn apart for eating an extra dinner roll. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked, "What are you going to do with the evidence?" I don't know yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Depends on what happens next. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? You've been living 2 lives for 6 years. You have children in Connecticut who think you're just a traveling salesman who works weird hours. You have a wife here who's so terrified of social embarrassment that she stays with a man she knows is cheating on her, and I'm supposed to care about what's fair to you? Uncle Rich left without another word. I watched him drive away from my window. Then I sat down and went through everything he'd given me that night. It was worse than I'd remembered. The wire transfers weren't just for child support. There were jewelry purchases, vacation rentals, even a joint bank account. The photos showed family portraits. Uncle Rich with his other wife and their twins at Disney World, at the beach, opening Christmas presents. He hadn't just had an affair. He'd built an entire second life. And my aunt's sister had been complicit in all of it. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "You need to apologize immediately. You've humiliated the entire family." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked her number. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. I went to work at the insurance company where I processed claims in a gray cubicle under fluorescent lights. I came home to my small apartment. I ate dinner alone. I waited. On day 4, my aunt's sister showed up. Her name was Diane and she looked terrible. No makeup, hair unbrushed, wearing sweatpants I'm pretty sure she'd slept in. "Can I come in?" she asked. I should have said no. Should have slammed the door in her face. But I was curious. So I let her in. We sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. "How long have you known?" "Since July." "Why didn't you say anything?" "It wasn't my business." "Until it was." She nodded slowly like that made sense. "Your uncle told me what you have. The documents, the recording. And I'm asking you not to use them. Please. I have children. They don't know about any of this. If this gets out, if people find out," her voice broke, "they'll be destroyed. Kids at school will tear them apart. They're only 7 years old." I thought about those photos. 2 little boys with gap-toothed smiles, holding up birthday cakes shaped like dinosaurs. They hadn't asked for any of this. Hadn't chosen to be born into a lie. "Your sister humiliated me in front of our entire family," I said. "She's done it for years. Every holiday, every gathering. She makes comments about my weight, my job, my life. She treats me like I'm worthless." "I know," Diane whispered. "I know she does. She treats everyone that way. She treated me that way our whole lives. She was always the pretty one, the successful one. I was always the disappointment." "So you slept with her husband?" "It wasn't like that. It started at their anniversary party, 5 years ago. I'd just gotten divorced. I was drinking too much. Rich found me crying in their guest room and it happened. And then it kept happening. And then I got pregnant. With twins." "With twins," she confirmed. "I told him I'd get an abortion. He begged me not to. Said he'd take care of everything. And he did. He got me the house, set up the accounts. He told your aunt everything. That surprised me. She knew from the beginning? Not the beginning, but she knew before I gave birth. Rich couldn't keep it from her. He felt too guilty. So he confessed everything and begged her to stay. And she did. And she did. Because divorce would mean admitting her marriage failed. It would mean losing her status, her position in the community. Your aunt's entire identity is built on being Mrs. Richard Thornton, wife of a successful real estate developer. Without that, she's just another middle-aged woman with expensive clothes and no purpose. I sat back, processing this. "So all 3 of you have been living this lie for years?" "Yes." "Why are you telling me this?" Diane met my eyes. "Because I need you to understand. This isn't a simple affair. This is 3 people trapped in a situation none of us know how to escape. Rich loves both of us. I know that sounds impossible, but it's true. And your aunt, she loves the life more than she loves him. And I love my children more than I care about right or wrong." "What about what I love?" I asked. "What about my right to not be humiliated, to not be treated like garbage at every family event?" "You're right," she said softly. "You're absolutely right. What my sister did to you was cruel. What we've all been doing is cruel. We've been so focused on protecting our secret that we haven't thought about who we were hurting in the process. So what now? I don't know. But I'm asking you, woman to woman, mother to mother, even though you're not a mother, please don't destroy my children's lives because their parents made terrible choices." I thought about it for a long time. About those little boys who didn't ask to be born into this mess. About my own childhood, growing up with parents who fought constantly but stayed together for appearances. About the damage secrets could do. "I won't release anything publicly," I said finally. "But I have conditions." Relief flooded Diane's face. "Anything. First, your sister apologizes. A real apology. Not a fake one to keep me quiet. She needs to acknowledge how she's treated me and why it was wrong. Done. Second, I want you to tell your children the truth. Age-appropriate truth, but truth. They deserve to know who their father really is before they find out some other way. Diane's face crumpled. They're so young. They'll be older someday. And someday someone will tell them. Better it comes from you. She nodded slowly. What else? Third, Uncle Rich pays for therapy. For all of you. And for me. Because I've apparently been elected into this disaster and I'm going to need help processing it. Okay? And fourth, I said, the most important condition. No more family gatherings where I'm the target. No more comments about my weight, my life, my choices. I'm done being the acceptable punching bag. If your sister can't treat me with basic respect, I don't come to events. And if I don't come, everyone's going to wonder why. And if they ask, I'll tell them. Diane stood up. I'll talk to her. I'll make sure she understands. One more thing, I said as she reached the door. I'm keeping the evidence. All of it. Not as blackmail, as insurance. If any of you ever try to paint me as the villain in this story, if you ever try to turn the family against me, I'll release everything. Understood? Understood. She left. I sat in my apartment feeling strange, powerful and exhausted at the same time. I'd spent my whole life being small, being quiet, being the easy target. And in one Thanksgiving dinner, I'd blown up everything. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is your aunt. I would like to speak with you. Are you available tomorrow morning? I stared at the message. The polite formality of it was so unlike the woman who'd mocked me while I held a casserole. I typed back, Saturday, 10 a.m., the coffee shop on Fletcher Street, public location only. Agreed. That Saturday, I arrived 15 minutes early. I wanted the advantage of choosing where to sit, of seeing my aunt arrive. I ordered a black coffee and claimed a table in the back corner where I could see the entire shop. My aunt walked in at exactly 10 a.m. She wore a navy dress and pearls, full makeup, hair perfect, like she was going to a business meeting, not having coffee with the niece she'd tormented for years. She ordered something complicated with extra foam and sat down across from me. We stared at each other in silence for a full minute. Finally, she spoke. I owe you an apology. Yes, you do. I'm sorry for the comments I've made about your weight and your appearance. It was inappropriate and cruel. The words were right, but they sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced in front of a mirror. Why? I asked. Why what? Why did you do it? For years. Every single time we were together. Why me? My aunt looked down at her coffee. Because you were safe. Safe? You don't fight back. You never have. You just take it and smile and pretend everything's fine. So you were safe to criticize, safe to belittle. Unlike everyone else in the family who might actually challenge me. So I was easy prey. Yes. At least she was honest. I could respect that more than a sugar-coated lie. What your uncle did to me was devastating, she continued. Finding out about the affair, about Diane, about the children, it destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. But I couldn't show that. I couldn't let anyone see how much I was hurting. So I needed somewhere to put all that anger and you chose me. I chose you. And that was wrong. You didn't deserve to be my emotional punching bag just because I was too much of a coward to confront the people who actually hurt me. I sipped my coffee, letting her words settle. Do you love him? Who? Rich? Yes. She thought about it for a long moment. I don't know anymore. I thought I did. Back when we first got married, I was crazy about him. He was handsome and successful, and he made me feel like I'd won some kind of prize. But somewhere along the way, I stopped loving him and started loving what he represented. The big house, the country club membership, the status of being Mrs. Richard Thornton. So you stayed for appearances. I stayed because leaving would mean admitting failure. My whole life, I've been the successful one, the pretty one, the one who did everything right. How could I admit that my husband preferred my own sister? That my marriage was a sham? It would have destroyed the image I'd spent my entire life building. So, you sacrificed your self-respect to maintain an illusion. Her jaw tightened. You're very harsh for someone who's never had to make impossible choices. I make impossible choices every day, I said quietly. Like whether to eat lunch or save that $5 for my electric bill. Like whether to go to the doctor for this pain in my side or wait and hope it goes away because I can't afford the copay. You think because I'm not rich that I don't understand difficult decisions? She had the grace to look ashamed. You're right. I'm sorry. That was condescending. We sat in silence again. The coffee shop buzzed around us with the Saturday morning crowd. Young couples on dates, students with laptops, families with small children eating muffins. What happens now? My aunt asked finally. That depends on you. Meaning? Meaning I have evidence that could destroy your marriage, your reputation, and your sister's life. But I don't particularly want to use it. Contrary to what you might think, I don't enjoy hurting people. What do you want? I already told Diane. Real change. Therapy for all of you. Truth for those children before they're old enough to be damaged by finding out later. And basic human respect from you at family events. That's it? That's it. No money. No groveling. Just treat me like a person instead of a target. My aunt nodded slowly. I can do that. Can you, though? Because this has been a pattern for years. You don't just wake up one day and stop being cruel. It takes work. I'm starting therapy next week, she said. I've already made an appointment. And I've scheduled marriage counseling with Rich. Though honestly, I don't know if there's a marriage left to save. Have you thought about divorce? Every day for 3 years. But the thought of actually going through with it terrifies me. What would I be without him? Without this life? You'd be yourself. Whoever that is. She laughed bitterly. I have no idea who that is. I've been playing a role for so long I've forgotten what's real. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered all those dinners, all those comments, all those years of being made to feel small. That sounds like something to explore in therapy, I said. You're not going to make this easy for me, are you? Why should I? You never made anything easy for me. She nodded, accepting that. Fair enough. My aunt left shortly after. I sat alone with my coffee, watching the street through the window. I felt strange, like I'd just won a battle but wasn't sure if I wanted to fight the war. Over the next few weeks, things shifted. Slowly at first. Uncle Rich moved out of the house he'd shared with my aunt. Not into the Connecticut house with Diane and the twins, but into an apartment downtown. Apparently being forced to choose between his two families had resulted in him choosing neither. Diane sent me updates via text. The boys knew now. They'd been told a simplified version. Daddy had made mistakes. Mommy had too. They were all going to work on being better. The twins were confused but seemed okay. Kids are resilient like that. My aunt started sending me articles, random things about restaurants or books or events happening in the city. At first, I didn't respond. Then one day she sent me a review of a new bakery and I replied, "Looks good." Baby steps towards something resembling a normal relationship. My mother finally unblocked herself from my phone long enough to leave a voicemail. I think I understand why you did what you did. I don't agree with how you did it, but I understand. Call me when you're ready. I wasn't ready. Might never be ready, but it was something. The real surprise came from my cousin Becca. She showed up at my apartment with wine and takeout one Friday night. "I need to tell you something," she said as we sat on my couch eating pad thai. "About why I texted you that day. Okay? My mother, your aunt, she used to criticize me the same way she criticized you, constantly. My weight, my hair, my clothes, my choices. Everything was wrong. Everything was a disappointment. I didn't know that. I hid it well. And then I lost 60 pounds. Starved myself for 8 months, exercised until I passed out twice. And suddenly she was proud of me. Suddenly I was good enough. And I've been terrified ever since that if I gain the weight back, I'll lose her approval again. Becca, wait, let me finish. When you said what you said at Thanksgiving, when you exposed everything, I was so angry at you. I thought you'd destroyed our family. But then I started thinking about why I was really angry. And I realized it wasn't about Uncle Rich or the affair or any of that. What was it about? It was about you having the courage to stand up to her when I never could. You faced the consequences I was too afraid to face. And I hated you for it because it made me look at my own cowardice. I reached over and squeezed her hand. You're not a coward. I am, though. I've been letting her control my life for years. What I eat, what I wear, who I date. She didn't approve of my last boyfriend, so I broke up with him. He was wonderful, and I loved him, and I ended it because my mother said he wasn't ambitious enough. It's not too late, I said. You can change that. You can set boundaries. How? When I think about confronting her, I feel like I'm going to vomit. Start small. Next time she criticizes something, say I disagree and change the subject. You don't have to have a huge blowout. Just start asserting your own opinions. Becca stayed until midnight. We talked about our family, about the patterns of criticism and control that had shaped both of our lives, about how daughters were taught to shrink themselves to fit into spaces designed by other people's expectations. When she left, she hugged me tight. Thank you for being brave, even if you didn't mean to be. A month after Thanksgiving, I got a letter in the mail, actual physical mail, in an envelope with a stamp. Inside was a card with a watercolor painting of fall leaves. The note read, "I know this doesn't make up for anything, but I wanted you to know I'm trying. I've been in therapy for 3 weeks now. My therapist asked me to write letters to people I've hurt, acknowledging the specific ways I've harmed them. I have 17 pages written to you so far. 17 pages of cruel comments and snide remarks and deliberate humiliation that I've inflicted over the years. Seeing it all written out has made me physically ill. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm finally seeing what I've done. Your aunt." I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and tried to decide how I felt about it. The truth was, I didn't know. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to maintain my anger like armor. Part of me wanted to believe people could change. Most of me was just tired. Christmas approached, and with it, the question everyone was avoiding. Would there be a family gathering? My grandmother finally sent out a group text. Christmas Eve dinner at my house. Everyone is invited. Everyone is expected to behave like civilized adults. No drama, no discussions of recent events, just family. I stared at the text for 3 days before responding. I'll come, but I'm bringing a friend. I didn't have a friend to bring, but I figured if I claimed I did, I'd have a built-in excuse to leave early. An ally in the room. My coworker Helena overheard me talking about it in the break room. "I'll go with you," she offered. "What?" "I'll be your buffer friend. My family's doing Christmas morning, so my evening is free. Plus, it sounds like terrible reality TV, and I'm weirdly invested now." So that's how I ended up bringing my coworker to family Christmas. The dinner was exactly as awkward as expected. Uncle Rich wasn't there. My aunt had told him his presence would be inappropriate. Diane wasn't there either, though the twins had sent a card that my grandmother displayed on the mantel like a war trophy. My aunt was painfully polite to me, offered me the serving dishes first, complimented my dress, asked about my job with what seemed like genuine interest. It was unsettling. Helena fit in surprisingly well. She laughed at my uncle's jokes, helped my grandmother in the kitchen, and ran interference whenever conversations threatened to drift toward dangerous territory. But the real moment came after dinner. I was helping clear plates when my aunt pulled me aside. Can we talk? Privately? We went into my grandmother's study. My aunt closed the door and stood there, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. I'm leaving him, she said. Rich, I'm filing for divorce after the holidays. Oh, I know you probably think I should have done it years ago, and you're right. But I needed time to get to the point where I could actually go through with it. Therapy has helped me see that staying was making me sick. Literally sick. I've had stress-related health issues for 3 years that I kept ignoring. I'm sorry you're going through that. Don't apologize. None of this is your fault. If anything, you did me a favor. Forcing everything into the open gave me the push I needed to stop living a lie. What will you do? After? She smiled, but it was sad. I have no idea. That's terrifying and oddly exciting at the same time. I've never been single as an adult. I married Rich right out of college. I don't know who I am without being his wife. Maybe that's something worth discovering. Maybe. She paused. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't even know if I should ask for it. But I want you to know that I'm genuinely sorry. Not because you have evidence against me, not because I'm afraid of what you might do, but because I've had weeks of therapy to process the kind of person I became, and I'm horrified by it. Okay? That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? That I forgive you? That we can be close now? I don't know if I can give you that. You spent years making me feel worthless. That doesn't just go away because you had an epiphany. She nodded. You're right. I just hoped. She stopped herself. No, I don't get to hope for anything from you. I need to do the work of becoming a better person whether you ever forgive me or not. We stood in silence for a moment. Then I said, I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm willing to see if you can actually change. That's more than I deserve. Yes, it is. We went back to the party. Helena raised her eyebrows at me questioningly, and I shook my head slightly. Later, I'd tell her everything. The evening ended without incident. My grandmother hugged me extra long when I left. I'm proud of you, she whispered, for standing up for yourself. I should have done that more when I was younger. That surprised me. My grandmother had always seemed so satisfied with her life, with her role as family matriarch. What would you have stood up about? I asked. She smiled mysteriously. Maybe I'll tell you someday, when you're ready to hear it. Driving home, Helena turned to me. Your family is intense. That's one word for it. How are you feeling? Honestly? Confused. Tired. A little bit hopeful? I don't know. Is it weird that part of me wishes I'd just kept my mouth shut at Thanksgiving? Why would you wish that? Because everything's a mess now. My aunt's getting divorced, Uncle Rich is living alone, those kids in Connecticut are dealing with their parents' drama. All because I couldn't keep quiet. Helena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Can I tell you something? As someone who just met your family but has been hearing about them for months through your break room rants? Sure, everything was already a mess. You just turned on the lights so everyone could see it. The affair, the second family, the dysfunction, none of that was your fault or your creation. You just refused to keep participating in the cover-up. But those kids were going to find out eventually. Better now when they're young enough to process it with help than when they're teenagers who stumble across evidence and realize their whole lives were a lie. She had a point. I'd been carrying guilt about the twins, but Diane had texted me last week that therapy was actually helping them. They were asking questions, processing feelings, drawing pictures of their blended family situation, young enough to be resilient. Thanks, I said, for coming tonight, and for saying that. Anytime. Though next year let's do something less dramatic. Maybe just dinner at my place with normal family dysfunction instead of soap opera levels. I laughed. It felt good. January arrived with typical post-holiday depression and bone-deep cold. I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts to pad my savings account. My apartment's heater had been making concerning noises, and I knew a replacement was coming eventually. Then in mid-January, I got a text from Diane. Can we meet? I have something to show you. We met at a diner near her house. She slid a manila envelope across the table. What's this? Divorce papers. Mine and your aunt's. We both filed the same day. Neither of us told Rich we were planning it. I opened the envelope. Sure enough, 2 sets of divorce filing, both citing irreconcilable differences. How did he take it? About as well as you'd expect. He showed up at my house at midnight begging me to reconsider. Then he drove to your aunt's house and did the same thing. She called the police. She what? He wouldn't leave. Just kept pounding on the door, crying, saying he'd change. She finally called the cops and they escorted him away. No charges filed, but they strongly suggested he move on. I sat back, processing this. Wow, it gets better. Or worse, depending on your perspective. He showed up at my work the next day with flowers and jewelry. Made this big scene in the lobby about how he loved me and the boys, and he'd do anything to make this right. My boss had to have security remove him. Is he having some kind of breakdown? His therapist says he's confronting the consequences of his choices for the first time in his life. Apparently, Rich has always been able to charm or buy his way out of problems. Now that both of us are actually leaving, he doesn't know how to handle it. How are the twins doing with all this? Better than I expected. They ask about daddy sometimes, but they're adjusting. My therapist says kids are remarkably adaptable when the adults around them are honest and stable. And are you? Stable? Diane laughed. Not even a little bit. I'm 37, newly single with 7-year-old twins, and I haven't worked in 6 years because Rich insisted I stay home. I'm terrified. But I'm also starting to feel like myself again. Like someone who makes her own choices instead of just reacting to what the men in her life want. What will you do? For work? I'm going back to school. I was a paralegal before I met Rich. I'm going to finish my degree and maybe go to law school. I've always wanted to. Rich said it was impractical with the kids, but now, she shrugged. Now I can decide for myself what's practical. I found myself smiling. Good for you. I know I don't get to ask for forgiveness either. What I did to my sister, participating in the lie for all those years, it was unforgivable. Have you talked to her? My aunt? Once? She called me after she filed for divorce. We talked for 3 hours, cried a lot, screamed some. We're not okay, probably won't ever be fully okay, but we're talking. That's something. Over the next few months, I watched my family reorganize itself into new configurations. My aunt moved out of the big house she'd shared with Uncle Rich and into a modern condo downtown. She started taking art classes and joined a book club. She emailed me photos sometimes, paintings she'd made, books she'd read. I usually responded with a sentence or two. Baby steps. Uncle Rich spiraled for a while. Lost weight, stopped showing up to work, got fired from the real estate company he'd built. Last I heard, he'd moved to Florida to work for somebody from college. Started over in a place where nobody knew his story. Diane enrolled in community college and got a part-time job at a law firm doing administrative work. The twins joined soccer and started making friends. She sent me pictures of them at games, grinning with grass-stained knees. Becca started therapy and broke up with the guy her mother had pushed her toward. Last I heard, she'd reconnected with the ex-boyfriend and they were taking things slow. My mother and I had coffee once a month now. Neutral territory, no heavy conversations, just updates on our lives. She'd never apologized for the years of staying quiet while my aunt tore into me, but she'd stopped defending my aunt's behavior. That felt like progress. And me? I was still processing, still going to therapy myself, working through years of being treated as less than. My therapist said I had people-pleasing tendencies stemming from childhood patterns of trying to earn approval from people who would never give it. She wasn't wrong, but I was learning. Learning to set boundaries. Learning to speak up. Learning that being kind didn't mean being a doormat. One Saturday in April, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Rich. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. It's important, please. I stared at the text for a long time. Every instinct said delete it, block the number, move on. But curiosity won out. What about? Not over text. Can we meet? I'll come to wherever you want. Just please give me 30 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at the same coffee shop where I'd met my aunt. Public location, daytime, plenty of witnesses if things went sideways. Uncle Rich looked terrible. He'd lost at least 30 pounds, his skin was gray, and his eyes had the hollow look of someone who wasn't sleeping. He ordered coffee he didn't drink and sat across from me, hands shaking slightly. Thank you for meeting me, he said. You have 30 minutes. Talk. I'm sick. Of all the things I'd expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. What? Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. They caught it late because I wasn't taking care of myself. Wasn't going to doctors. By the time I finally went in because the pain was so bad, it had spread. I sat frozen, unsure what to feel. Sympathy? Suspicion? This felt like the kind of thing Uncle Rich would lie about for sympathy. I can show you the medical records if you don't believe me, he said, pulling papers from his bag. I scanned them. They looked real. Diagnosis dates, treatment plans, prognosis estimates. 6 to 8 months, maybe longer with aggressive treatment. I'm sorry, I said. Because what else do you say? I'm not telling you to make you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you because I'm trying to get my affairs in order. Literally and figuratively. And I need to make things right before I die. Okay. I'm setting up trust funds for the twins, making sure they're taken care of even after I'm gone. I'm selling the Connecticut house and the proceeds are going to Diane for their education. I'm also setting up a trust for you. What? No. I don't want your money. It's not about what you want. It's about what I owe you. You were the only one brave enough to tell the truth when everyone else was living a lie. Including me. Especially me. The trust is $50,000. It's yours whether you want it or not. I didn't know what to say. $50,000 would change my life. New car, apartment upgrade, emergency fund, maybe even going back to school. But taking money from Uncle Rich felt wrong. Why are you really doing this? I asked. Because I'm dying and I'm terrified of what comes next. Not the death part. I'm oddly okay with that. But the judgment part. The looking back on my life and seeing what I became. I destroyed 2 families. Hurt everyone who loved me. And for what? Because I was too selfish and cowardly to make a choice? You're seeking redemption. I'm seeking something. Maybe just peace. Maybe just the ability to close my eyes at night without seeing the disappointment in my children's faces. Both sets of children. We sat in silence. I watched people come and go from the coffee shop, living their normal lives, unaware that death was sitting at table 7 having an existential crisis. I'll accept the money, I said finally, on one condition. What? You record a video message for the twins, for when they're older, explaining everything. Not making excuses, but explaining how you got from point A to point B. How good people can make terrible choices. How much you loved them even though you hurt them. Uncle Rich's eyes filled with tears. You think I'm a good person? I think you're a person. Good and bad, like everyone else. The twins will need to understand that someday. That their father wasn't a monster, just a flawed human who made catastrophic mistakes. I'll do it. Thank you. He left shortly after. I sat with my now cold coffee, trying to process what had just happened. Uncle Rich was dying. He was leaving me money. He wanted absolution I wasn't sure I could give. I called my therapist and scheduled an emergency session. "How do you feel about his diagnosis?" she asked. Confused, sad, a little bit angry that he gets to die and escape the consequences while everyone else has to keep living with the damage. That's a valid feeling. Is it terrible that part of me thinks he deserves it? Do you really think that? I sat with the question. Did I think Uncle Rich deserved to die of cancer at 53? Did I think his lies and betrayals warranted a death sentence? No, I admitted. I don't think anyone deserves cancer, but I also don't know how to feel sympathy for him when he caused so much pain. You can hold both truths, my therapist said. You can recognize that his illness is tragic while also acknowledging that his choices hurt people. Empathy doesn't require absolution. Over the next few months, I watched Uncle Rich deteriorate. My aunt went to see him once. She wouldn't tell me what they talked about, but she came back looking lighter somehow, like she'd put down a burden she'd been carrying. Diane took the twins to visit him in hospice. They were old enough now to understand that Daddy was sick, that he wouldn't get better. They drew him pictures and sat on his bed telling him about school. He cried through the entire visit. Becca went to see him too. Came back and told me he apologized for setting a terrible example, for showing me that it was okay to live a double life and lie to people you love. He said watching me start to stand up for myself gave him hope that the next generation might break the pattern. I didn't visit until the end. Until the hospice nurse called and said he had hours, maybe a day left. Did I want to say goodbye? I drove to the facility at 2 a.m. The hallways were quiet, just the beep of machines and the soft footsteps of night nurses. Uncle Rich's room was at the end of the corridor. He was barely conscious. Morphine drip running, breathing labored. He looked like a skeleton, nothing left of the confident man who'd confessed his secrets on a back porch 9 months ago. I sat in the chair beside his bed, took his hand. It was cold and thin, bones prominent under paper-thin skin. "It's me," I said softly. I came to say goodbye. His eyes fluttered open. He tried to speak but couldn't manage it. "Don't talk, just listen. I forgive you. Not for your sake, but for mine. I'm tired of carrying anger. I'm tired of letting your choices define my family, so I'm letting it go. You made terrible decisions, but you also tried to make them right at the end. That has to count for something." A tear rolled down his cheek. "The twins will be okay. Diane's strong. My aunt is finding herself. And me? I'm going to use that money you left me to go back to school, get my degree, maybe become a therapist so I can help other people untangle their family messes." I sat with him until his breathing changed, until the gaps between breaths grew longer, until finally, just as the sun started to rise, he took one last shallow breath and didn't take another. The nurse came in, checked his pulse, noted the time of death, asked if I needed anything. "No," I said. "I'm okay." I walked out of the hospice into the early morning light. The world looked different somehow, sharper, more real, like I'd been living in a fog and someone had finally lifted it. Uncle Rich's funeral was small. My aunt came, sitting in the back row. Diane and the twins sat in front, the boys wearing matching suits he'd bought them before he got too sick to shop. A few business associates, some distant cousins. I didn't cry. I'd done my crying privately, mourning not the man, but the family that could have been if everyone had just chosen honesty over convenience. The trust fund money arrived in my account 2 weeks later. $50,000, just as he'd promised. I stared at the number on my phone, hardly believing it was real. I paid off my car, put a down payment on a better apartment in a safer neighborhood, enrolled in community college to start my psychology degree, put the rest in savings for emergencies and tuition. My aunt and I met for coffee monthly now. Real conversations, not just surface pleasantries. She was dating someone, a retired teacher she'd met at her book club. He made her laugh. She seemed younger somehow, lighter. "Thank you," she said one afternoon over lattes. "For what? For refusing to let me hide. For forcing all of us to confront the truth. I know it didn't feel like a gift at the time, but looking back, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. You did the work," I pointed out. "I just lit the match. You rebuilt yourself from the ashes." "We both did," she said. "You rebuilt yourself too. You're not the quiet girl getting stomped on anymore." She was right. I wasn't. Somewhere between that Thanksgiving dinner and now, I'd found my voice. Learned to use it. Learned that speaking truth, even uncomfortable truth, was sometimes the most loving thing you could do. Becca got engaged to the ex-boyfriend her mother had made her dump. The wedding was small and beautiful. My aunt cried happy tears and didn't make a single critical comment. Diane graduated with her paralegal degree and got hired at a prestigious law firm. The twins were thriving, well-adjusted kids who split their time between their mom's house and sports practices and play dates. And me, I finished my first year of college with a 3.8 GPA. I was working as a part-time peer counselor at the campus mental health center. I had my own apartment, my own life, my own choices. 1 year after that Thanksgiving dinner, my grandmother hosted another one. Different this time. My aunt brought her boyfriend. Diane brought the twins. Becca brought her fiancé. My mother came alone. She and my father were separated, working on their own issues. And I brought Helena, who'd become one of my closest friends. Before dinner, my grandmother asked us all to say something we were grateful for. When it came to me, I said, "I'm grateful for truth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because living in a lie is worse than facing uncomfortable reality." My aunt raised her glass. To truth. Everyone echoed it. to truth. We ate dinner without cruelty, without barbs, without the undercurrent of secrets and resentment that had poisoned every gathering before. It wasn't perfect. We were still a family with complicated history and deep wounds. But it was honest. And that was enough. After dinner, I helped my grandmother wash dishes. She handed me a small box wrapped in tissue paper. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a journal. Old, leather-bound, filled with yellowed pages covered in elegant handwriting. "My diary," my grandmother said, "from when I was your age. I want you to read it. Understand that the patterns in our family go back generations. And understand that you're the one who finally broke them." That night, back in my apartment, I opened the journal. The first entry was dated 1967. "Today, I married a man I don't love because my father said it was my duty. I'm 20 years old and my life is already decided for me. I wonder what I could have become if I'd had the courage to say no." I read through years of entries. My grandmother's quiet desperation, her dreams of being a writer crushed by expectations, her affairs, her secret rebellions, her slow acceptance of a life she never wanted. The last entry was dated 1 week ago. "Today, my granddaughter showed me what courage looks like. She refused to accept the role we tried to force on her. She spoke truth even when it cost her everything. She is everything I wish I'd been brave enough to be. I am so proud of her." I closed the journal and cried. For my grandmother and all her lost dreams, for my aunt and her wasted years, for Diane and her complicated choices, for Uncle Rich and his deathbed regrets. But mostly I cried for myself, for the girl I used to be who thought being small and quiet and accommodating was the same as being good. For all the years I'd let myself be diminished because it was easier than fighting back. That girl was gone now. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who understood that kindness and honesty weren't opposites. Someone who knew her own worth and wouldn't let anyone convince her otherwise. The next morning, I started writing my own entry in a new journal. Not about the past, but about the future. About the therapist I wanted to become. About helping other people find their voices the way I'd found mine. About breaking patterns instead of perpetuating them. About choosing truth over comfort. About building a life on honesty instead of illusion. I was 28 years old. My family was broken and reassembled into something new. I had student loans and a modest apartment and a future that wasn't guaranteed. But for the first time in my life, it was mine. Truly mine. And that was everything.